So the reason why most of us aren't as successful as we can be isn't because we're not capable. It's because our success targets are way too reasonable and way too low. So right now I'm reading a book by Grant Cardone. It's called The 10X Rule, and I'm loving the book. And in the book, the author talks about why you need to be successful, why it's a duty, not just a luxury or an option. And the author explains that the moment you treat success with disdain and an option and a luxury and something that should be casually pursued, that's the moment where you will fall slave to the circumstances, whether you like it or not. Because guess what? When the author was 50 years old, he was going through the greatest downfall and contraction the economy has ever seen since the Great Depression. And his business has suffered in this as well. He had a successful business, or so he thought. But unfortunately, when this contraction happened, he wasn't prepared to face the circumstances that he thought he was able to face. The business was not as sustainable as he thought it would be, and it wasn't making as much money as he needed in order for it to be a long-term business, a sustainable business to support his family. And it was very obvious to him that his company was at stake and it was in jeopardy. And it was falling in that trap, in that recession trap, that contraction trap that a lot of businesses in his sector were falling at, but some big top ones weren't failing. And you see, this situation served as a wake-up call to the author because he had noticed that he had been treating his business and his life and success specifically as a luxury and an option, not as an absolute must. And that's what caused him to operate in what's known as the 4th degree of action, which is known as take massive action. So you see, there's 4 degrees of action. There's do nothing, there's retreat, and then there's take normal levels of action, and then there's take massive levels of action. That's the 4th. So when the author started changing his mindset and adopting a new philosophy, a new approach for taking massive levels of action, he started asking himself, exactly how much action is necessary in order for me to convert my business or businesses to be sustainable, not just that, in order to be the top-notch level of businesses that some competitors are at, some of my competitors are at. And he concluded one thing after doing extensive research and after working so hard. The magic pill is all you have to do is operate at the 4th level of action, or 4th degree of action, which is to take massive levels of action. And it's not just about working hard, and it's not just about taking massive action. You have to take massive action persistently and over a long period of time, and you have to do so really aggressively. Unfortunately, most people operate at the first 3 degrees of action, which is doing nothing, retreating, and taking normal levels of action. Most people, when you tell them about taking massive action and being on this 4th degree of action, they start asking you questions like, oh, how long is this gonna take? Is this really gonna work? Is there a guarantee? I don't know if I can work so hard. I'm not as motivated as you. I don't have as much energy as you. I'm not as young as you. You see, these people, which again are most people, the 3 degrees of action, the first 3, they operate at these levels. And because they're making these excuses, they're not aware that they're literally spending most of their time making excuses, worrying about why something won't work, and literally convincing themselves that it won't work. So how do you expect to succeed if you're in that category? You obviously won't. However, the person who's in the 4th degree of action, such as the author, recognizes the opportunities and starts taking massive action aggressively, persistently, and over a long period of time, over an extended period of time. So when the author first started adopting this 4th degree of action, he started instigating new opportunities and started addressing them later in a different way than he normally had done it. And then he started noticing he was working more and more hours and putting more and more effort, but he stopped thinking about how much he was working. He stopped thinking about how much hours is this going to take. He stopped thinking about when exactly will I achieve so-and-so type of results. The reason is because he committed to making success his duty and his ethical obligation. And that's when people started asking him, why are you out so late? Why are you working on Saturdays? You never quit, do you? What are you on? What kind of drugs are you on? Once they started asking him these questions, that's when he knew that he was really operating on that 4th degree of action. And you see, guys, massive action not only implies working way harder, it also implies thinking way bigger. Now back to that target example that I gave very early in the video. You see, most of us are very comfortable living in mediocrity and just being in our comfort zone and not even stretching beyond our comfort zone because that's what we think we can achieve. That's what society tells us we can achieve. For example, if you had a goal to make $100,000 within the next year or two, although that's a good goal to have, to be making that kind of money, But that's the wrong way to go about it. Here's why. If you give the goal to yourself to make $100,000 over the course of that year or two, that's probably all you'll be making, and more than likely, you'll probably end up only making $85,000 to $90,000. However, if you raise the bar way too high to a point where it's unrealistic out of you, that's actually better for you. For example, if you tell yourself within 2 years, I want to be making $500,000. Now, although that bar is very high and it's unrealistic, which is kind of the point, when you set that bar super high for yourself and you treat success as your not only priority, but your obligation and your ethical duty, your mindset will start to shift and you will start working harder and thinking bigger. You'll be operating in the fourth degree of action. And when you start operating within that fourth degree of action, you'll naturally start working harder, you'll naturally start thinking bigger, and you'll naturally stop counting the hours you're working. You'll naturally stop asking yourself, when is this going to be over? You'll naturally stop asking yourself, am I going to achieve this goal or not? Instead, because success is your obligation and your duty, you're going to be like, of course I worked 16 hours today. Of course I worked 14 hours today. Of course I worked this much. Of course I worked 6-7 days this week. It's not going to feel like work to you because you're going to pursue it as though it's something you have to do. It's not a luxury. This is your calling as a man. This is your birthright. Not only your birthright, it's your duty. And so let's say when you set out that $500,000 goal, let's say after you set out that goal, a year or two passed and you only make $200,000 or $300,000. Although you significantly fell short, you still made way more money than the guy whose goal was to make $100,000 a year. You actually ended up making 2 or 3 times as much as him simply because of your mindset shift, because you started operating on the fourth degree of action. You started thinking bigger. You started setting the bar unreasonably high for yourself, and that is the point. According to the author, it's way better to set the bar unreasonably high and fall short than to set the bar in your comfort zone and to achieve that specific goal that you want. And in order to take that massive level of action, you have to take every single opportunity that comes your way. You must do this. Not can, not should. You must do this. The author gives us a great example. He says his wife is actually an actress. So sometimes his wife asks him, should I really take this audition or should I not? I don't really see myself in this role. He tells her, take it anyway, because guess what? Even though they think you suck for this particular role, when you're showing up like that and you're taking massive levels of action, they might be like, she sucks at this role, but she's actually great for this other role. And other agents can recognize her, and guess what? Then they can put her in that particular role that she's fit for, or that they see her fit for. He also says, besides, a lot of actors in Hollywood still suck, yet they're still somehow working. The goal is to be seen, thought of, and considered. You see, guys, the worst position you could put yourself in is a position of obscurity where no one knows you or no one can see you. Instead, in this particular case, you need to put yourself in a position where others can see you. Remember, guys, money and power follow attention. And when you can get people's attention by showing up a lot and taking massive levels of action, that's when they're going to start taking you seriously. And that's where you can start having value to your name, and people can start associating you with a person of high value, a person whose business means something, a person whose efforts mean something, a person whose connection means something. Massive action can never hurt you and will always help you. And here is one place in particular, the previous example I just gave, where quantity can actually be more important than quality in this particular scenario. You see, no one's going to come to your house and make your dreams come true. No one's going to sit there and take your products and market it to the world just because that's what you want. No one's going to consider you and pay attention to you if you yourself aren't taking massive action and proving to the world that you have something great to provide. The one who usually proves that is the one who takes massive action. They operate on the fourth degree of action. They think bigger, they think higher, they have higher targets for themselves. They're taking 10x levels of action, not just barely at their comfort zone and not stretching beyond that comfort zone. In order for you to generate massive success in any area of your life, you have to be willing to take massive action, and you have to make it your priority and discipline and duty as a man, not luxury, not option, but a duty to break through obscurity and take massive action until you generate success for yourself in any area of life that you desire.